614 Productions would like to present The Not So Neutral Zone, a podcast for armchair enthusiasts by armchair enthusiasts. The opinions expressed on the show are those of the participants and in no way represent those of any sports organization, league, team, or athletes therein. We're your hosts, David Trexler and Jacob Smith.
So we're the Draft Kings this week, right?
Yeah, we're the Draft Kings, but we're not going to make you any money. Nor will we claim to make you any money.
Unlike Mel Kiper, we'll admit we're not experts when it comes to the draft.
Yep.
Now, before we get started talking about the draft this week, 3 big points. 1, the news of NASCAR buying ARCA, which I can see good and bad things on that. Good is there's more resources now for ARCA. The bad side, you're probably going to see more of an influx of drivers moving down. But for ARCA, it could be a good thing. The second thing I note is another thing dealing with ARCA. I saw this a few hours ago. Racing legend James Hilton and his son were killed in an accident. I'm not sure where, because I saw one report said it was in Alabama, another said Georgia. But for the impact of a guy like him, he may not have been the champion. He may not have won 200 races like Richard Petty or 80-some like Waltrip and Allison. But it's a name that just about everybody in NASCAR can admit it was a big deal. Now, our next topic of conversation is the playoffs. Right now, NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are in full swing. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. And an interesting thing happened. I don't know about last fall with the World Series, but Philadelphia had 3 sports teams in the playoffs. Unfortunately for them, the Pittsburgh Penguins knocked them out in 6 games. Washington is playing right now. They're up 1-0 against Pittsburgh over Washington. Tampa and Boston haven't started their series yet, so they knocked out New Jersey and Toronto. San Jose knocked out the Anaheim Ducks. The Winnipeg Jets knocked out Minnesota. Colorado is knocked out by Nashville. And the final piece in the NHL part was the expansion Vegas Golden Knights, made up of a hodgepodge of players from all over the league, eliminated the LA Kings 4-0, and now they're up 1-0 against San Jose. So you can argue they have the best record in NHL history in the playoffs because they've not lost.
Yeah, and arguably, I can't think of any expansion teams recently that's had as much as immediate success as the Golden Knights.
Yeah, because really, the current Anaheim, they've been around since the 90s, so that's probably the most recent successful team in hockey. And what that can do for the NFL, as far as the Raiders when they move, that's going to be a lot of pressure on the Raiders coming into town if this team can win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, the Raiders are going to have to show some success, or they're going to end up moving to a town and failing to establish a fan base.
Like the Chargers.
Yeah. If you don't come in and start winning some games, people don't care. Now, the Golden Knights, I think, would have gotten a pass for a couple seasons on that because obviously they are an expansion team. But the Raiders are different because they are moving into the market and need to establish a fan base quick.
Now, on the flip side of that, the other playoffs is NBA. Now, ironically, the 2 teams that are supposed to be the top 2 teams in the league did not either one get number 1 seed. In the West, you got Houston knocked out Minnesota 4-1. The number 4 seed Oklahoma, they fell apart after Kevin Durant left. Utah beat them 4-2. Portland, the number 3 seed, got knocked out by New Orleans. a team with a mascot name that hardly anybody likes, even though it's relevant to the state. Unlike the Utah Jazz or LA Lakers. But New Orleans beat them 4-0. Golden State beat San Antonio 4-1. So now it's Houston versus Utah, New Orleans against Golden State, and on the other side, the number 1 seed Toronto beat out Washington. Number 3 seed Philly beat out my guys, the Miami Heat, 4-1. But they weren't 100% this year for Miami. Boston and Milwaukee, number 2, number 7, are tied 3-3. Cleveland and Indiana are tied 3-3. So Toronto gets either Cleveland or Indiana. Philly gets Boston or Milwaukee. So you still got a chance for at least 3 of the 4 teams from Boston to make it. But an interesting stat was that I looked up that LeBron James has been in 47 NBA Finals games since his last tenure, since last year in Cleveland. And if they make it to the NBA Finals and the Cavs lose, he's leaving. He'll do like he did in Miami and Cleveland. But he's 20-27, and he's not that successful whenever his team's behind in a series. So, and I think the days of the big 3 are over, because now it's starting to seem like it's coming back to 1 or 2 stars on each team. It's not the Bulls from the 90s that won 6 titles with Jordan and them.
I think it might have something to do with branding. Like, if you are on a super team, your name kind of gets left by the wayside. Whereas if you're the big fish for one team, then you get all the marketing deals, and everybody wants your face on the billboard promoting their product. And I think that's a big deal for some people. Think about Golden State. Obviously, you can name some of the players from there. But if you were trying to get a Golden State player to sponsor your product, which one will you get? Money is not an object here. Just which one would you get?
I think the obvious 2 people to look for are Curry or Durant.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've got to choose between those 2, I'm going to lean towards more Curry because he's the younger guy. To me, he just has that, especially if it's a product like a sports drink, something that is typically geared towards young kids. I'm going to kind of lean more towards him versus Durant, because he still, to me, Curry still looks like he's an 18-year-old, not a 20-something.
I think he might be in his 30s by now. We'll have to double check that. Yeah. But yeah, think about the other players on that team that if they were somewhere else, they could get the local marketing deals and stuff. And just because you don't see them nationally doesn't mean they're not getting local endorsements or player appearances. If the car dealership wants you to come get their car, they're going to have a player appear.
Okay, I've got my guy. I don't want Curry anymore.
Who you want?
I'm going to go with, after Allen Iverson left the Sixers, this guy was named the new AI. I'm going with Andre Iguodala.
That would be your guy.
He was their MVP in the when they won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy he's 34. He played for 8 years with the Sixers, I believe 1 season with the Nuggets, and he's been with the Warriors since 2013. He hasn't joined the team. He hasn't been picked up because he was a hot college prospect. He was kind of almost a journeyman. And Iguodala, he's got stats. He's 2-time champ. Both, it looks like, with the Warriors. He's been to Finals MVP and All-Star. He was first team Pac-10 when it was the Pac-10 before it was the 12. So he's got success. That's, to me, an impressionable guy. But what everybody doesn't look at is we eventually have to look at the fact that we're looking at a post-LeBron NBA. Kind of like a post-Tom Brady NFL or baseball, I'm not sure. And it's almost like looking at a post-Sidney Crosby NHL. You got to have that. you got to have somebody that's going to be the face of the league, or in Tom Brady's case, the arch enemy of the commissioner.
The heel.
Actually, I think in unless your team was beating the Super Bowl by the Patriots, mine was. I'm on Brady's side in this. I'm on Brady's side when it comes to the Brady Goodell matchup. The only thing good about Roger Goodell is the first 4 letters of his last name.
that's pretty clever.
And I guess this is a good time to transition over to talking about the draft.
One quick point, real quick. Stephen Curry turned 30 March 14th this year. So he is 30.
All right.
Now, back where you were going.
That was a good joke. Mine was a good joke about Goodell. But bad joke was his walking out onto the stage at the draft with, I'm not sure who the other guy was because I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on except the boos. Because somebody at work with me, I told him, I said, which do you think gets booed quicker? Baker Mayfield getting drafted by the Browns first overall, or Roger Goodell? And I said, it's going to be a tight race, but I think Goodell may get the edge. But how do you come out onto the stage with Dallas Cowboys with you, legends, and sit there and say, come on, don't boo these guys. They're not the ones getting booed. It's the people don't like you.
He rolled out there with the disabled kid, and they were still booing like hell. I kind of feel bad for the kid because this is like your first time out there on stage in front of millions of people, and all you hear is boos.
When is the last time that you've seen all 32 or all the NFL fan bases in unison booing the Commissioner League, especially the Cowboys after what he did to Jerry Jones? You know, you can't really be too popular with the crowd if that happens. So I think what we'll do is we'll review round 1, and then we'll just kind of hit on highlights from 2 through 7 because everybody focuses on 1. That's why round 1 gets its whole day of draft, and then the others have to share.
All right. Well, I will. This will be my job interview for NFL commissioner. Here we go.
Now, this is episode number 7.
Mm-hmm.
For 6 episodes, you've heard me say the one thing I do not like. There's 2 things in college I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Heisman Trophy quarterbacks coming to the NFL and being all the rage,
mm-hmm.
and being an SEC player, because it doesn't always pan out for you, especially if you're in that Venn diagram of Heisman over on the left, quarterback from the SEC on the right, and you merge into those 2, it's usually not the perfect storm.
All right.
And with that, let's talk about that guy from I believe it's the Big Ten.
So with the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns selected Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Oklahoma.
And in unison, the Cleveland Brown fans went, oh, here we go again. Did you actually hear the boo he got? It wasn't as loud as Goodell's, but it was still a definite one. I think they wanted Darnold more. I mean, you've got a quarterback on your roster already, a veteran. Yet you go the same route you did a few seasons ago with a short quarterback that's not a Russell Wilson caliber guy. To me, he would fit better in the Saints system because him and Sean Payton are just alike. We celebrate before the game's over. And if he is smart, he will heed the advice of that one person that nobody in a million years would have ever thought was going to give another quarterback advice. And that was Manziel. Dig deep. Study as much as you can. Learn from whoever you can. And to be honest, Tyrod Taylor should be the starter this year. Mayfield needs to learn under a guy who was not afforded the Heisman Trophy like him. Was not afforded the starting job everywhere he automatically like he is now. To me, was he the best quarterback in the draft? No, there was two better. And no, neither one of them is the guy who we'll talk about it at the end of the first round. But Darnold, another good guy. The kid that Buffalo drafted, when we get to him, is the one I'm looking forward to the most because of his size.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield, I think in our pre-draft episode, he was the number 4 quarterback on my board. But, he could be a good fit. Cleveland needs some of that swagger, some of that attitude. And I think he's coming into a good position behind Tyrod. Tyrod's had to work for everything he ever got. He was never afforded anything in the NFL. He was one of the better quarterbacks they had in Buffalo for a while. And he ends up getting run out of town because he wasn't the star that they wanted.
He had a commercial.
That is the true definition of success.
Look at Peyton Manning and Terry Bradshaw.
But to touch on some other things with Baker Mayfield, with the pick, not necessarily with Baker Mayfield, apparently the Browns front office, the GM, John Dorsey, did not tell his coach who he was drafting until 2 days before the draft, which, ironically, or I guess coincidentally, is when the Baker Mayfield to Cleveland rumors started to circulate. Do you think that is a healthy relationship between a GM and a coach if he wouldn't tell you what player he's drafting number 1 in the NFL draft?
No. The only way that works is if you're Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones. That is the only head coach GM relationship that's lasted that long. Another one that I see being a healthy relationship is his dad and their current head coach had a sour relationship at the end of their tenure after he left and went to another team and beat them in the Super Bowl. And I'm talking about John Gruden and Mark Davis. Now that Mark's in control of the team, there's another healthy one. Unhealthy is like that. Because I give you one better. I know somebody that is more... If the GM drafted a quarterback without his head coach's knowledge in this team, it might sound odd, and it might sound like a schizophrenia kind of thing, but I see Bill Belichick doing something like that. Yeah, he's head coach and GM, but imagine being Josh McDaniels. You turn down a job to go to Indianapolis, and you're sitting there as OC. I can see him doing that to him and going, "Hey, we're going to go out here and we're going to grab Lamar Jackson with our pick. We already got a quarterback. Yeah, but for how long?" It'd be one of those kind of dynamics. Now, who we got going to... I'm going to use analogies when we talk about the teams instead of their real names. Who we got going to Gang Green up there in New York?
All right. With the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Football Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
Yeah, now Saquon Barkley would have been a perfect fit in that Cleveland system. Imagine him with I don't remember who the running back is that they picked up in free agency.
Didn't they get Hyde, Carlos Hyde?
I want to say it was him. But add those two together with the core receivers they got and Tyrod Taylor. You've got an awesome team. Now maybe I don't know why, but I didn't see Saquon Barkley going, even with my limited knowledge of college football players, I didn't see him going past number 3. He wasn't going past the Giants. The Giants were going to grab him if the Jets didn't. Why the Jets grabbed him?
The Giants grabbed him, not the Jets. The Jets were 3.
Okay, I'm mixed up.
I know, New York teams. But yeah, if the you're saying that if the Giants didn't select him, the Jets would?
Well, I got myself mixed up because that's all I've been thinking about was the But yeah, the Giants were definitely gonna grab him. It wasn't no question. He was gonna be 1 or 2. It was, had I been GM of Cleveland, I'd have went for Darnold or the other quarterback.
Josh Allen.
I know he's one of the Joshes, but yeah, they. I think it's just that. What do we need? Because I actually think had Barkley went number 1, Mayfield may have went number 2 because that's what a lot of these teams didn't really look at in the draft was, especially the ones that have like Breeze, Brady, Eli Manning, Joe Flacco, Phillip Rivers. You've got aging quarterbacks on your roster. They're not as healthy as they used to be. I mean, Albie Brady's got, the health of Baker Mayfield and Shaquan Barkley and Lamar Jackson and these other guys. He's probably as healthy as half these quarterbacks coming into the league this year. But there is that one nemesis that no human on earth can escape, and that's Father Time and his old friend the Grim Reaper. Those two they'll sneak up on you out of nowhere. So you got to make sure you're playing on an elite level. And to be honest, I mean, yeah, the Saints won their division. Eli plays good every year, and he's been lucky to escape that injury bug that so many quarterbacks have. You're not guaranteed. I mean, ask Rich Gannon. He went out on a play and got nailed, and there was his career.
So I think the Giants pick really tells what they're going to try, what they're trying to do. They obviously didn't go out and grab a successor for Eli. They added some more weapons. I think they want to try to make one more run at success before Eli is done. And I think this is a good pick. It can take a lot of pressure off of Eli to try to make things happen, which is what's happened before. They try to make Eli. People see Manning and they assume that he is Peyton and can carry a team. He's not that good a quarterback, and that's one reason that they won 2 Super Bowls, was because they put a team together around Eli, and they didn't just assume that he could carry things. So I think now whether or not this gamble works out, I have no idea. But I think that's what they're trying to do. Try to make one more push at it.
Okay, who we got going next?
With the third pick, the New York Jets select Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC. So I think, if I remember correctly, I think this was my top ranked quarterback last week, or last show. And I think the Jets, this trade makes a whole lot more sense now, because they didn't break the bank to move up to 2 or 1, and they arguably got the best quarterback in the draft out of it. What you think?
Yeah, he was definitely, after when I actually did some research on college players and started looking at, the top. I went with the top 32 instead of going top 100, top 50 like they did. And his numbers impressed me, and mainly Allen's size. Because I was sitting there thinking, okay, who does each team have and what weapons they got? And the further his name started slipping down the list, the further it kind of started just making me think, okay, evidently Cleveland is sold on something that we're not. Especially when Darnold is at his pro day and the owner of the Browns is sitting next to his parents talking about how he'd be a good fit for the Browns. And then the GM just goes a whole 180 and goes for the guy that's got that extra trophy sitting on his shelf at home. But at the same time, Darnold has more history behind his school and position than Mayfield. When you look at guys like Mark Brunell, Carson Palmer, Mark Sanchez, Matt Leinart, there's a lot of good quarterbacks come out of that school with that position. I mean, to me, I see USC as a more elite school to go to than Alabama, because I read an interesting thing this week. You may play on that successful Alabama college program that wins a national championship, but Nick Saban's not concerned about your NFL career. He's concerned about getting that national championship in college football. He's not concerned about getting you transitioned ready for the NFL. Case in point, why Alabama has only had one quarterback in 30 years win an NFL game in A.J. McCarron, who's now in Buffalo.
All right, at number 4, the Cleveland Browns selected Denzel Ward, cornerback, Ohio State. This was a kind of a surprise pick.
More popular pick among Cleveland fans because he was from Ohio
State, yes. Yeah, hometown boy. So they don't have to change allegiances. But I thought for sure that Chubb was going to go with this pick, and I think that was kind of the consensus. But it's not a bad pick. He's one of the higher. He definitely fills a need that they needed. Um, but yeah, it's overall great pick, highly touted corner prospect, and I think he can be an immediate contributor for the Cleveland Browns. All right, at number 5, we have the Denver Broncos selecting Bradley Chubb, defensive end, NC State.
Was he the defensive guy?
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one that I thought could go at 2 or at 4, and he fell all the way to 5. Now with this pick for Denver, I thought that they could pick a quarterback, but obviously they didn't like what they saw, or they feel comfortable with what they're rolling with. They've got Keenum. They still got.
Now, one guy that was very excited about them picking up Chubb for that defense was Von Miller, and they're talking about how that he could be the addition to that defense that defense hasn't had since they had the guys like Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware on that defense. And that could be a major addition to their team.
Yeah, it's obvious that they're going to roll with the quarterbacks they have, and they're going to try to bolster the defense and do what they did, 2015, and ride a defense to another Super Bowl championship. Whether or not it'll work, that's up to be seen, but, the quarterbacks can't throw the ball if you're constantly hitting them.
Who we got next?
Number 6, the Indianapolis Colts selected Quentin Nelson, guard, Notre Dame. This pick obviously makes sense if Luck's going to be back, which they seem to be of the opinion that he will be back. He's a very good pass protector, just top-rated guard in the draft. So it's a position to need. It seems like a lot of teams need offensive line help, and so they went out and got them some.
I got nothing on this one, so who we got next?
You don't like the big boys? All right, here's one that you can talk about. Number 7, the Buffalo Bills trade up to select Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming.
Yeah, that's the guy. As soon as they showed his stats up on the board, and I saw his size, it's what Buffalo needed. If they were going to get rid of Tyrod, that was really the only course. I don't even know if Darnold would have been a better fit, but they've got the wide receiver that this guy could look at. And just imagine Kelvin Benjamin's reaction when he realizes he's getting a tall quarterback. Got to be happy because it's going to bring him back to his pre-injury days in Carolina when he was Cam's go-to guy. Now this could be his chance to return to that form. Plus, in the NFL, many of the guys that try to rate the guys that's going to be drafted, if you aren't from Oklahoma, Texas area, east and southeast part of the United States in college, they don't really look at you. So, being he's one of those mountain kids, yeah, I think he's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I think he's used to playing in the weather. He's big guy, strong arm. The only issues with him is his accuracy. What was he, 56% completion percentage in college, which is low. But that's something that can be worked on. So I think Buffalo needs to pay a lot of attention to his development. But I think that he could be their franchise quarterback. Now you got to think about the situation it puts A.J. McCarron in. He just got to somewhere where he thinks he's going to be the starter, and they trade up to draft a quarterback without even him having so much as a snap in Buffalo yet.
McCarron, like the analyst said during the draft, McCarron was only there if they couldn't get a quarterback in the draft. They got a quarterback. They got the tallest and what I feel like is the second best quarterback in the draft as far as, not just looking at his numbers or his size, but if you kind of, it's like one of those algorithms. You put all the quarterbacks and all their information stuff in there. Here you go. This is your guy. And I think, McCarron should just go ahead and accept the fact that he had those two good showings, but he's going to be like, I can't remember his name, his first name, but Flynn.
Matt Flynn.
He's going to be like Flynn was when he left Green Bay and went to Seattle. He thought he was going to be the starter, and
surprise.
A draft pick, this guy's better, but I think he does get to start maybe one or two games in preseason, but he won't be the starter week 1.
You think that they start, are you saying that McCarron won't be the starter week 1 or Allen?
I think Allen because McDermott, he showed, I don't think they're going to take that chance they did last year. You benched your proven starter for another guy who come in, 5 interceptions?
5 interceptions.
And basically cost you a game that could have got you one spot better in the playoffs than what you were. I think they were.
They snuck in as the 6 off of Cincinnati beating Baltimore.
They could have been the 5th seed had Tyrod Taylor not been benched that game. But yeah, I think Allen gets to start over McCarron week 1.
All right, that's fair. All right.
Look, and that, by the way, has no bearing on the fact of where McCarron went to school. It's just he had 2 lucky games. Now, had he been the guy filling in for Tom Brady, like Garoppolo, yeah, McCarron would be the starter week 1. But no, you got to put a little more effort. Now, if he'd have thrown 40 points on the board each game when he was Cincinnati's starter those games, yeah, he would definitely get at least 1 or 2 game start.
All right. So at number 8, you have the Chicago Bears selecting Roquan Smith, linebacker from Georgia.
They haven't had solid linebackers since they lost Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher.
Mm-hmm. So Chicago, in their history of linebackers, they went out and got them one. Good player. He's got great against the run. He's slightly undersized, so we're going up against those.
Ray Lewis.
Going up against those offensive linemen might be a problem. He's going to need some work diagnosing offenses. But, I think this is a good pick for him. Bring in a linebacker into a place known for their linebackers and see how you can develop him.
I'm waiting on us to get to one of my big picks that's not a guy that I knew before the draft, but immediately when his name was called, he landed on my list.
All right, number 9, we've got Mike McGlinchey. Yes. Tackle out of Notre Dame. Again, people are needing offensive line help. If Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be your starter for the future for the 49ers, this is a great pick for them. They need to tackle help, keep your quarterback upright.
The only comment I got as far as this guy, and there's one other guy that we haven't mentioned yet, but because both of them played on the Notre Dame offensive line, and both of them got drafted first round, says something about these guys, that evidently that program's, again, it's not one of those elite level, Ohio State, Alabama, USC kind of programs, but it's a good program. It's just overlooked because of that one factor that school never looks at. They're an independent, so they're not really looked at as very high up on the ladder of everybody's opinion. Yeah,
he is 6'8", 309 pounds. Absolute massive dude.
Got to feel for Garoppolo not being able to see over this guy. But it was an interesting thing I saw one time in some magazine. When you're standing on the field, you're not seeing a flat line. You are basically, if you're like at the 50-yard line, you're basically looking downhill kind of almost at it. Not enough for your eyes to physically see it as a fan, but when the players see it and I think they were talking. It was when Kerry Collins played for the Panthers. They were talking about it. Is a quarterback, because at the time Collins was like 4 or 5 inches taller than every lineman he had in Carolina. So they can actually, if they can see over these guys, it makes it easier for them to lob those passes over. And at 6'8", he's going to put a hole out there for the running backs to get through.
That's a big dude. If you ever get the chance, check out his picture on his draft profile. He looks like, I swear, he looks like he's 30 years old. 30, 35 years old.
He looks like he's ready to retire.
Might just be his size, but he does. All right. Number 10, we have the Arizona Cardinals trading up with Oakland to select Josh Rosen, quarterback, UCLA. Now, this was, I think he was my third-ranked quarterback. Yeah. So getting him number 10, and they didn't use that much capital to trade up and draft him.
Before people start looking and going, why a quarterback from UCLA? Well, you have to remember back in the late 80s, Jerry Jones drafted this guy. You might have heard of him out of UCLA with the first overall pick. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. If you haven't ever heard from him, you're a new football fan or you've been living under a rock. But he was also one of the draft analysts, Troy Aikman, who has a couple pieces of hardware on his hand that not everybody has. And, so UCLA is not the worst team to play for. And I think Arizona may have their answer, because how many games are you going to get out of Bradford? Maybe 8.
I put the over-under at 5.
Sam Bradford's one of those guys that would benefit better from playing in like the XFL or something where it's going to be a shorter season. Then he can play, say he played a full season in that league.
Yeah, but that guy's made so much money playing in the NFL.
No, he made his money before he even stepped foot on a field.
That is true.
$50 million guaranteed.
That is true.
He could have retired after 1 year and been good.
Going back to Rosen, Rosen has one of the best arms in the draft. He's a very natural thrower. His concerns are, and you're going to love this because it sounds like we're talking about Bradford, where his durability is a concern. He's had injury issues going back all the way to high school. And his decision-making is not the best. But I think those are things that can be worked on, maybe not the durability part. He's probably just going to have to change his game. But yeah, this could be the answer for Arizona. I can't recall the last time they drafted a quarterback this high. They had
Logan Thomas they got, but I think he was like a 3rd or 4th rounder.
Yeah, they've drafted further back quarterbacks, and I think there's a previous first rounder whose name I forget.
I'm kind of distracted with our guys we're talking about in the draft, because there's like 4 other guys I want later on in the first round that I want to go after, and that we hadn't hit on yet. And I think 3 of the 4 of them are defensive guys, which I'm more of a defensive fan than I am offense.
All right. Well, we'll now we're out of the top 10. We'll pick it up a little bit. We'll go over it. At 11, the Miami Dolphins got Minka Fitzpatrick, the safety from Alabama. Again, something they were needing. A little undersized. He's only 6 foot and 204 pounds. But again, the NFL's going to smaller receivers, corners. It'll cycle back around. It always does. They tend to go to the small guys, and then when everyone gets small and fast, they go back to the big guys, and they start being physical again.
Okay, not real knowledgeable on this guy because hardly watched any of his college games.
The number 12 pick swapped hands multiple times. It was originally Cincinnati's, went to Buffalo, and then to Tampa Bay, who selected Vita Vea, the Washington defensive tackle.
Vita Vea.
Did you see his outfit? I know you saw his outfit.
Yes, that was, to me, that was a break from all these other guys just kind of going with the standard template and going with something that was really showing who this guy really is. Oh, I'm not going to just dress up in a 3-piece suit show up at the draft so that everybody thinks I'm all snappy. I'm going to dress in my traditional dress. But, challenge for you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've got something pulled up with him on it. I want you to pull it up, and I want you to see if you can pronounce his full name.
Oh, I saw that during the draft last night. I don't think I could do that. Let's see.
As far as I can get is Tavita Vea.
All right, I got it here. Let's see. Tavita Tuluakiuno Tupulu tu Mosese Vahai Finoko Falatu Vea. Pretty sure I butchered that. That didn't sound anything like what he said on the...
Not as fast as his either. Cause
he went up there as a...
But he is one of the four guys I was talking about. Because at his size, just seeing him standing beside Deion Sanders reminded me of the greatest defensive lineman to ever put on a Tampa Bay uniform, Warren Sapp. He's got that size, and it could be the piece that they're missing from the middle of the puzzle in Tampa. It could be that defensive piece. Is he going to be the saving grace? Is he that final piece of the puzzle to save Dirk Cutter's job? No.
They put together a defensive line this offseason because they got Jason Pierre-Paul. They got the
club,
the defensive end out of Philly. Can't remember his name. And then Gerald McCoy, of course, in the middle there. They have a line, and I'm really not happy about it because they in my division. I got a quarterback that takes too many hits as it is, and now one of our division rivals is putting together a pass rushing line.
It just makes the point harder that the NFC South is going to have the best four defensives. If the Saints can get their stuff together, it's going to make that division, you're going to have to win the division to guarantee yourself a spot in the playoffs because those four teams, and that's where a lot of analysts are saying that they're nervous for the NFC East because they got to play the NFC South and a couple, I think they each got one game against the AFC South this year, which is a team that is starting to be like a flower in springtime. It's starting to bloom at the right time, especially with that Jacksonville team, and I know we've got one coming up with their pick. I think they went defensive line too, which bolsters the already evil defensive line. We got Voldemort and Freddy Krueger on this defensive line. As bad as this is, it's gonna be hard to get against them. But Vea, one of the best pieces I think that Tampa could have picked.
Yep. And
where did he go to school again?
He went to school at Washington.
That's right, because when they said Washington, it kind of threw me off because most of those guys with that Pacific Islander sounding name usually tend to gravitate towards either Hawaii or USC more. But being that he went up there in Washington shows that he can handle any climate, so he's going to be dangerous anywhere.
All right, at number 13, we have the Washington Redskins selecting Daron Payne, defensive tackle, Alabama. The Alabama defensive players were very popular this draft. I guess Alabama just in general. But you have, later in the draft, you have several more Alabama players, including some offensive players in the first round. Go ahead. I know you're going to do it. Do your rant about Alabama.
Really, the only thing I got on that is, I think I said it earlier in the show, is it's a program that, like in the article I read, it's more about the head coach, more concerned with getting that national championship than preparing his players for success in the draft. Now, their defensive players typically do better in the NFL than their offensive players. And especially if you're in the secondary, I take that back. If you're on Alabama's front seven, you see more action than your safeties do because typically they shut down the other team's offense quicker versus their secondary where, and most of the times, most of your points against Alabama seem to be through the air instead of on the ground. They seem to be like New England, able to stop the run, not the pass. And I think, Washington, I don't know if it's going to... He's going to still get to keep similar uniform colors from college, but I don't know, unless Washington can turn around with Alex Smith, he kind of went down the wrong road, and he's at a dead end now.
And to cover some more on Daron Payne, he's very much he eats up blocks. He's a average pass rusher, but he's very good at shutting down the run, which you just said that Alabama's really good at. So I think they have a lot of success to thank Payne for.
Well, see, that's the other thing about Alabama I see is that if you look at it, they've had a lot of turnover at the offensive coordinator position, which leads me to believe that your head coach is not that genius he appears to be, but his defensive side of his ball, where he has little control at, where he lets the other side do it, makes it better. And according to the NFL's most recent post that just popped up, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Redskins have been labeled the biggest winners from day 2 of the draft. But we'll go ahead and get to that next guy before we get to before we look at this any further.
All right, number 14. This one's interesting. The New Orleans Saints trade up, including next year's first round pick, to move to 14 to select Marcus Davenport, defensive end, Texas San Antonio. I thought for sure when this trade went down that it was going to be Jackson, that it was going to be Lamar Jackson. And then they said Marcus Davenport, and this draft's actually kind of deep on defensive ends, so I don't understand why they sacrificed next year's first round pick to trade all the way up for him.
No clue.
No clue.
I got nothing on this one. Although the fact that if I was going to trade away my next year first round pick, I would have traded to Cleveland to take the first overall and go after Mayfield and get me a quarterback for the future.
Now, as far as Marcus Davenport goes, they must have really loved him, but he was a pretty good pass rusher. Adds to that young defense that they're trying to put together. All right, we're going to pick it up just a little bit. At 15, the Oakland Raiders finally select Colton Miller, offensive tackle, UCLA. This is maybe Donald Penn's successor out there in Oakland. Someone to try to keep Carr upright. Probably will play right tackle for the next season or two before moving over to left. At number 16, we have Tremaine Edmonds, inside linebacker, Virginia Tech. I know this is one you were waiting on.
Number 2 of the 3. Interesting fact. You mentioned the Saints a minute ago. Mm-hmm. His older brother plays for the Saints. His father will play for the Dolphins, and I can't remember the other team. His dad was an all-pro offensive guy. Him and both his brothers play defense. And I watched, because I'm a Virginia Tech guy, I watched a lot of this kid's games. And I knew, just watching him, he wasn't going to go outside of the first. He was going to somebody, and I'm not going to lie, part of me hoped that he would have hung around a few picks longer, and I would have heard the Atlanta Falcons select him or his brother, which, first time in NFL history, I think they said, or I may be wrong, or maybe it's in the modern Super Bowl era, that 2 brothers were picked in the first round. The cool thing for him is, yeah, he's going to be having to travel to play in his professional career, but now Dad's got 3 football teams to watch.
All right, at number 17, the LA Chargers selected Derwin James, safety from Florida State. Solid pickup for them.
Dion was happy about that one.
Dion, yeah, he was beside himself.
Because he asked him, where'd you go to school? Where? The Florida State University. Don't put the "the" in there. We know there's only one. That's why a lot of people don't like Ohio State, because they call themselves the Ohio State. We know there's only one Ohio State University.
All right, number 18, we have the Green Bay Packers selecting Jareer Alexander, cornerback from Louisville. Louisville was another popular school for the first round.
Another college school that I am not very high on their head coach, for not just because of what he done to the Falcons, but I have that big issue about a guy with integrity issues like he does, being a head coach and trying to teach his players about keeping the integrity of the game. You can't teach your guys integrity if you're lacking it And that's one of the things I employ myself when I coach my soccer team is play out on the field, respect the other people, respect everybody around you, practice what you preach. Don't tell the guys be loyal when you're out there cheating on your wife, or you're going to do like Nick Saban and cut tail and run for the NFL.
Yeah.
But Louisville does have some good players aside from his problem. Louisville does have players because maybe it's them wanting to distance themselves or just to kind of prove doubters wrong. But yeah, I think, of course, Mike McCarthy's not an idiot when it comes to picking up defensive guys. He helped Julius Peppers get a second win in his career. But yeah, I think he'll do fine. I'm just not a big Louisville guy.
Yeah, Bobby. When I first heard that story about Bobby Petrino when he left Atlanta and just left a note in each locker that he was resigning. If you can't stand up in front of the team and say, "I'm resigning as the head coach," that you ain't got no balls.
Yeah, that just miffed me there.
All right, number 19, the Dallas Cowboys select Leighton Vander Esch from Boise State, linebacker, inside linebacker. Solid pickup. He one thing I noticed when they're rolling his film is he's got that big neck guard on the back. Looks like an old school linebacker. Maybe that's the look he's going for.
Brian Bosworth.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's a good thing considering how a lot of these guys, whenever take these hits and their necks are snapping back, his neck's not going to be able to go back as far. So maybe he's thinking longevity in the career.
Maybe. And, of course, the Cowboys are needing linebacker help. Sean Lee has that Bradford illness where he can't stay healthy. So maybe this is their middle linebacker of the future. Number 20, you have the Detroit Lions picking up Frank Ragnow, center for Arkansas. And there was some discussion in the draft from the draft analyst that he would probably play guard or who would kick the current center for the Lions out to guard. Either way, he's a mauler.
Jim Bob will find a spot for him in that offense. And that's the good thing about him getting to Detroit is he's not going to be like a lot of draft picks have been when there's been a new head coach. He's going to have the same offense coordinator, so Matt Stafford, somebody better, can actually, tell him, hey, this is what the team's looking for. Now, they don't always treat some of their draft picks well. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, for example. But I think Matt Patricia is going to instill some of that knowledge and stuff he had at New England. I see the team getting more of structure. And maybe not this season. Maybe in a few seasons we're going to see them return to the playoffs. Maybe even take a run in Minnesota and Green Bay for that division.
Yeah, I think, just to go on a rabbit trail real quick, I think the structure that some of the head coaches provide is an underappreciated asset. Because you could be all that fire and excitement in the locker room, but then your guys, I think they need a routine, and I think that's something that Bill Belichick does real good. Tom Coughlin did really well when he was coach, and now is doing it in the front office in Jacksonville. So I think that structure is a big part of players because, honestly, you see in the offseason when they're not involved with the team, you see all these players getting in trouble. Aside
from Aaron Hernandez, I don't know that Bill Belichick's had any serious stuff. Yeah, you got Gronk's partying, but for the most part, his team stays so well-rounded that, I'm not a New England fan, but a couple seasons ago, I actually was cheering on New England in games when they were playing just because it's like, okay, if one of my favorite polarizing social media personalities in Chad Johnson or Hoto Cinco can sit there and have fun and make jokes about how he loves New England, yet not getting many touches, what does that tell you, He's able to do something now. The Malcolm Butler situation was one that kind of makes me wonder, is it time for Bill to hang it up? But yeah, they've got, it's there. You've got to have the structure. If not, think about it like with guys like Ron Rivera, Mike Singletary. These are guys that played on Super Bowl winning teams. Even Doug Peterson in Philly. He wasn't a starter, but he was there. Frank Reich up in Buffalo. These are guys who may not, they come from structured programs. They know how to get things done. They're going to instill some of what they learned on you. And that's what I want in a coach. That's what I'm going to look for if I'm a player getting drafted. That's going to be one of my questions I want to ask. What is your future plans like right now? If I'm coming into the league right now, I want to go to Oakland. Their coach has got a 10-year contract. Other than death or he really pisses Martin Davis off, he's their coach for 10 years. Structure. I want stability. Bill Belichick, stability.
All right.
I'm ready to get to Pittsburgh. I'm ready to talk about Pittsburgh. I know D'Angelo, we're going to have to tell him he's going to have to listen to this because I'm going to talk up his team for a second.
All right. Well, at number 21, we had the Cincinnati Bengals taking Billy Price, center, Ohio State. Another Ohio State player going to the other Ohio team. So that's
staying
nice.
Staying in the neighborhood, not really going to have to move far.
And Cincinnati's needing offensive line help bad. They've got to protect Dalton. Dalton has proved that he can be a good quarterback given time.
Yeah, he's one of those ones I'm still aggravated how people talk about how he's not the quarterback for Cincinnati. He is the quarterback. He and A.J. Green were like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones for Atlanta, or Tom Brady and insert unwanted receiver name here, or Cam Newton and Greg Olsen. I'm running out of guys to think of. Dallas quarterback, whoever you want to say, and Jason Witten, who just recently retired.
Yep.
But you want somebody that's got that dynamic with the receiver, because, look at Peyton Manning with Marvin Harrison, and then Reggie Wayne, Aaron Rodgers, and for a while it was Jordy Nelson, or Donald Driver.
Mm-hmm.
But you want that 1-2 punch, and I think that's something they need. They need to get AJ Andy some protection. Because to me, I like Andy. I've liked Andy since he was drafted. I don't know why, but, just kind of good player. And I think center's a good pick. Because, to me, offensive linemen in the draft are like a safe pick. Because they're guys, if they don't start, they can learn every position on the offensive line. And they can rotate in and out. It's not like you could take your safety and your corners and just interchange them like that unless you're going to put them in a nickelback.
Yeah. And with as college offenses keep changing to more and more spread, I think if you see an offensive lineman you like, you better take him early because it's going to start being a shortage. We're already seeing it, teams needing offensive line help all over the place. There's just not that much talent. There's not that many people that have been trained to do that the way the NFL teams do it. All right, at number 22, we have the Tennessee Titans selecting Rashad Evans, outside linebacker, Alabama.
Not the MMA fighter.
Not the MMA fighter, no. Nope. Another key piece of that Alabama defense. And should be a great pickup for Tennessee. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Tennessee's still running a base 3-4, I believe. 3-4 defense. Pretty sure they are.
With Vrabel as head coach, most likely, because I think that's what he's been in most of his career.
Yeah, so he's going to end up probably playing more of that hybrid role, but I think it's a good pickup for him. At 23, you have the New England Patriots selecting Isaiah Wynn, tackle, Georgia.
Which they needed because they've been losing over the last few seasons a lot of all offensive line. Plus, it's good to kind of start getting that post-Brady Belichick stuff in place.
Brady covers up a lot of deficiencies in the offensive line at New England. Think about it. Think back, what was it? Their 2007 team, the undefeated season, where he was throwing it downfield. An underappreciated asset of that year was how much time Brady had. Brady had time all the time. He was standing up in the pocket. And that's another reason that he threw all them touchdowns that year. And then in years past, it's been a lot of the short passing game because the offensive line just can't give him as much time.
To an extent, you also wouldn't hurt one bit to hear with this pick in the draft, the New England Patriots select, and you hear your name, you're like, okay, I'm going to the playoffs. I know that. I'm going to the playoffs. How many Super Bowl rings am I going to get? Because, when Brady first got there, it's like, okay, we still stink. We're terrible. And then after a couple, it's like, okay, we've got something going on here. Not to mention the other three teams in their division don't really kind of explode, and everybody kind of spends their whole season trying to get into playoffs, and then when they get into playoffs, New England is so conditioned for the playoffs that, okay, we got to go to New England, we got to play them, they're going to beat us up there.
And I think that helps with coaching these young guys. These young guys come in, some of them very arrogant. They think they know it all. And I think it helps when they go to, say, a New England that has proven success. So when Bill Belichick is out there chewing you out about something, you probably deserve it because he's got, 5 rings with New England and 2 with the Giants?
And not to mention over 20 years head coaching experience plus probably 30 years at least of coaching experience, period.
Probably the greatest coach to ever step on an NFL field.
I'm actually going to go with his mentor with the Giants because if you look around the league, there isn't a single head coach that doesn't have some kind of connection to Bill Parcells, who you always put as that, John Madden's over here, but you've also got Bill Parcells, who's had more coaches come out of his tree and out from under his umbrella that it basically looks like a family tree that's been around 300 years. Mm-hmm. Just everybody umbrellas from him, and that's just where it comes from. That Belichick now is becoming like a second tier kind of a coaching prodigy kind of guy that you want to be under.
Yeah, branching out again.
That's why in our very first episode when I was talking about Vrabel, or second, whenever, why I was talking so high on Vrabel is he wasn't an assistant under Belichick. He was a coach. And look at the influence Rod Woodson had out in Oakland, or John Lynch is having in San Francisco, and he played briefly under Belichick. But he was also under Gruden's championship team, so, he's got that inner working. Plus, not to mention, he went to one of those elite schools, I believe at Stanford. So he's not a dumb guy. He knows how to work things, and people forget. Every NFL team is basically like 32 individual businesses under one corporate umbrella. So he's basically running a business and doing a good job.
All right, now we're getting to my team's pick, and I'll be honest, I like this pick.
To be honest, being an obvious Atlanta fan, I'm happy with the 2 picks that Atlanta and Carolina both got, because it was like if whichever one Carolina didn't pick, Atlanta was going to pick. So it's kind of like a toss-up. It was kind of like flipping the coin. Who's going to get heads, who's going to get tails?
Well, Carolina ended up landing DJ Moore, wide receiver from Maryland. He's the shorter, faster guy out of the 2, and I think that works well. We've already got big receivers. You still got Funches, you got Olsen still, and they picked up a tight end again later on. So it looks like we've got those big receivers. We need some fast guys. Now, obviously, we've had some fast receivers, but they've all kind of been the plug and play guys, whoever you can find from practice squads. So I think this was a good pickup, and I think it gives Cam some more weapons.
I think the stamp of approval that DJ needs to look at is when Steve Smith said Carolina was never going to be able to replace me.
Until
now they have.
Yep.
And, you got to put that as a stamp. That wasn't Steve Smith's arrogance as much as it was, they finally found the guy who compliments me. And they took basically the Steve Smith of the 2. Mm-hmm. And is it a bad idea? No, because to me it brings back memories of, those Jake Delhomme, Steve Smith days of this may be what Cam needs as a compliment. Yeah, a lot of people gripe about how, McCaffrey's the focus of the offense. Well, maybe now this gives them a balance, and every team is always looking for that standard that you put yourself up against with the Cowboys, with the triplets, Irvin, Aikman, and Smith. This might possibly be the first time they've had this in a long time, because to me, I was never really a Williams fan when he was with Carolina. Then after he left, it seemed like Stewart took on that role of, I'm just here to collect a paycheck. So now they've got this solid receiver. Will he make the Pro Bowl? It depends on how good of a season Carolina has. Because usually your season dictates whether or not you make the Pro Bowl a lot of times. Super Bowl bound? Don't know. I don't know. I definitely could put Carolina now as an upset for the Super Bowl, because it's not a question of if, but when is the NFC South going to put another team back in the Super Bowl?
Well, I think it's Tampa's turn to get heartbroken this year, because let's see, we had Carolina getting manhandled in the Super Bowl, Atlanta losing Super Bowl, then you had the Saints this year lose the Minneapolis Miracle. So now I think it's Tampa's turn to make the playoffs and get crushed about something.
They are also, well, no, because New Orleans too, but they've only been to one Super Bowl, so, and the team's not riding that Super Bowl anymore like New Orleans is. Mm-hmm. But, they're going to give you the heartbreak this year, because they're going to have a new coach. I'm pretty confident in 2019 they're going to have a new head coach.
All right, at number 25, we have the Baltimore Ravens selecting Hayden Hurst, tight end, South Carolina. First tight end off the board. Good pickup for the Ravens. A lot of people were thinking Lamar Jackson here, because the Ravens kept kind of trading back. And it looked like they were just trying to collect picks and wait for a specific player. But they took a tight end here. Good receiver, good blocker. All in all, well-rounded tight end. Now we'll get to 26. The Atlanta Falcons select Calvin Ridley. I know you were probably pretty excited about this. This puts Atlanta having a lot of different weapons. You've got the two-headed attack in the backfield. And now you've got 3 wide receivers that any of them could take over a game.
As the Atlanta Facebook page, their Twitter page, their Instagram page, they're my team, so I follow them. I also have Carolina on all 3, so I'm not, hating on the North Carolina team, but every one of them, my phone was blowing up off of the Atlanta Twitter feed, because it was just welcome to the brotherhood, welcome to the brotherhood, welcome to the brotherhood, constantly. And it was just so many people getting excited, because it was like, okay, we'll take him, because it was like, I don't know who else everybody else wanted, but it's like, I was hoping defense, but hey, it's a wide receiver, take it, because the last first round wide receiver they took, he's worked out pretty well for him. Now he wasn't one of my guys that I was excited to talk about as much as Moore, because of the Steve Smith comment, but he's not the guy I want to talk about.
I know. We're about there. 27, we have the Seattle Seahawks selecting Rashad Penny, running back, San Diego State. This is probably one of the more confusing picks of the draft, of the first round. Rashad Penny had like a 3rd round grade.
Pete Carroll, John Schneider, that's all I can say.
But it's not the first time they've done this. They always kind of overdraft. If they love a guy, they'll just pick him where they want to. So, I mean, we'll see if it works out. They like him. They might be on to something. So, number 28, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Terrell Edmonds, safety, Virginia Tech.
Now, for me, it wasn't the fact that they took Edmonds, but I know their dad had to be excited to hear that his 3rd child was going to be going to the NFL as a professional for another team. But for me, that was not the highlight of this pick. The highlight of this pick for me was watching Ryan Shazier walk onto the stage to announce the pick. To me, that was the best part. And to see the Pittsburgh Steelers fans' reactions, I lost count. I don't know how many you counted, But all those fans sitting there tearing up, it was like, that's what I'm waiting. Now the next thing I'm waiting to see is Ryan Shazier put on a Steelers uniform, and he doesn't even have to go out and play. Just to see him put his jersey on, walk out to midfield, and call a coin toss. It'd be great for the Super Bowl, but just for it to be week 1 and see him call the coin toss.
Yeah, I guarantee it that week 1, or I don't know if they play at home week 1, their home opener, they will. He'll lead the team on the field. I bet you. At 29, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Taven Bryan, defensive tackle, Florida.
Another monster piece to that defensive line. Now, I don't know how excited I would be being him with the news that I heard this week. Which Shahid Khan is trying to buy Wembley Stadium and potentially move the Jaguars to London.
See, I heard that was...
But there's 31 other owners that's probably going to say, nope, we're not willing to travel over there and play 8 games a year.
That's true. I think this is more of a move that's trying to prevent a franchise from moving to London. He owns a soccer team over there too, but I think this is a move to try to prevent an NFL franchise either expansion or moving to go there. I think he's put in a lot of money into Jacksonville, the area around the stadium and the stadium itself. I don't think they move anytime soon. I don't think they move, period. But I think this is more of a power move to try to prevent a franchise. So say you had a franchise that wanted to play in London, and they go, well, we play in Wembley over there for the international series. Why don't we play there? And Khan will go, no, find somewhere else.
Well, they did pick up another arena there.
Yeah. Tottenham or something.
But still, I don't... Because, I mean, the Glazer family that owns the Bucks, they own part of Manchester United, or they may own the whole thing. So, I see them as playing that power thing. But when you got guys like Robert Kraft, Mark Davis, Jerry Jones, and McNair, I think out in Houston's like a close fourth. But when you got those power guys that, you got to convince them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to do that because I'm not trying to invest that much money into that series. Yeah, because, if you play 8 games over there, that kills the novelty of it. It makes it, it wasn't any special anymore. It was like a vacation for some teams because they'd have a couple days practice, they have a couple days to go hang out with their family and go travel and see London. No, if you're going to do that, revive NFL Europe. Bring back a development place over there. Because the London Monarchs, London-based NFL Europe teams were not financially viable because of that. You can't sit there and say, well, yeah, it's going to be good. No. If you're going to expand or you're going to move a team, move them to Canada. Because Canada is a prime market. Look at Toronto. Toronto obviously is not going to work because of Buffalo. You'd have to work out a deal for Buffalo, which that's not going to happen. But Montreal, Ottawa, Calgary, Vancouver, those are some great cities to move a team to if you're going to move because they can handle that. But first, think about the cities like San Antonio and Portland. Portland is a sports-loving area, just doesn't get the attention. But yeah. We're hitting that rabbit hole. we can hit the rabbit hole another time. I think that might be we may have to write that down as a topic for next episode so that we can kind of just have some off-the-hip episode that's not going to be anything centric.
Yeah, I know NFL will be quiet for the next little bit. You'll have a few free agency signings and stuff, but it'll be quiet for the next few weeks.
Just had a rabbit hole thought. That trade thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers traded a wide receiver to Oakland, giving Carr another weapon, but... We'll get back to the draft. I think that was just one of those little, let me throw that dart off to the side instead of hitting the bullseye.
All right. At number 30, you have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Mike Hughes, cornerback, Central Florida. I think that's a good pickup for them. They need some help back there.
Not really a school you hear a lot about when it comes to draft. You don't hear a lot about that school's name.
We'll have to go back through at some point and see what the smallest school or like the least athletic school selected out of here because it's
Alcorn
mostly
State?
big names.
Oh, you're talking about this year.
Yeah, in the first round. There's Texas San Antonio, but that's not exactly a small school. All right, at number 31, we've got the New England Patriots selecting Sony Michael, running back from Georgia. Good pickup for them.
Bill Belichick loves his running backs.
I fully look forward to the 4 games that he's the starting running back and never hearing from him again. All it takes is one fumble.
Yep, especially in Belichick's system. One mess up and you're kind of Mr. Irrelevant.
Yep. All right, this is probably going to take the remainder of our time.
By
here.
the way, before we cover him, can you while you're introducing him and everything, I'm gonna look it up. I need to figure this out because it has to be mentioned.
Okay. At number 32, and now I called this with a buddy of mine, that someone would trade up into the bottom end of the draft, first round of the draft, to select Lamar Jackson. And that's exactly what the Baltimore Ravens did. It's funny that a team with purple as their color traded up to the last round pick of the first round to select a Louisville quarterback.
On a side note, out of SMU, wide receiver Trey Quinn was selected by the Washington Redskins as Mr. Irrelevant this year. Now, on an interesting note, I know I'm kind of cutting in on Lamar's time here, but since we are not paid to endorse him, I thought I would go back here and give a very interesting statistic. Because there have been notable Mr. Irrelevants to do something. Marty Moore was the first Mr. Irrelevant to play in a Super Bowl with the Patriots in Super Bowl 31. Mike Green played a big role in the secondary of the Bears from 2000 to 2008. Jim Finn was on the New York Giants Super Bowl 42 victory team. He was on injury reserve, but he still played a couple games and got him a ring that year. 2008 winner David Vabora was starting linebacker for the Rams during the 09 season. Now, the 09 winner, Ryan Suckup, was the starting kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs and went on to tie the NFL record for highest field goal percentage by a rookie.
Yep. He's probably the most successful Mr. Irrelevant.
He just signed a contract extension, and he is with the Tennessee Titans. So not every Mr. Irrelevant becomes irrelevant. Some become more relevant than others. But with Lamar Jackson, I don't know how early in the draft it was during our group message. That's what I was looking up when we first started. But I was looking up, and you know I don't know how many messages I sent. I think I sent more anti-Baker Mayfield messages, less anti-Baker Mayfield messages than I said Jackson was going to Baltimore. And I called it, pick 20-something before 27 kept getting shuffled around?
Yep, you called it.
I had a feeling, though, he was going to go to a team that was going to need an heir apparent. And especially with the backup now third stringer, RG3, that 3 on the back of his jersey stands for third stringer. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a great pickup, and it makes the RG3 pickup make a lot more sense, too. If they're looking like, at the end of this season, Joe Flacco has no dead money left on his contract. They can cut and get out from under that bad contract they signed all them years ago, and they can get away from Flacco. Flacco is past his prime, okay? He's not the guy he used to be. He was never even that great. He just had a great playoff run. So RG3 and Lamar Jackson are very similar players. So if that's what they're going to go for, Lamar Jackson starting with RG3 backing him up, that makes a lot more sense.
Now, with a little over a minute left, aside from our teams, who do you give the award for biggest winner in round 1? Because we know we're not going to talk about round 2 through 7. Who's your big winner? We're not analyzing here either. We're just kind of going to give just like a real quick answer on why. Mine, I'm going to go with the New York Giants because they got Barkley. Biggest loser, Cleveland for taking Mayfield. Now they need to prove me wrong with that guy if they got that much faith in him.
My big winner, and it's not for the player they drafted, is the Green Bay Packers, because they collected extra picks for only moving down 4 or 5 spots. They ended up with another first round pick next year because the Saints had to move all that way up, and then they used some of what they got from the Saints to move back up to get Jareer Alexander. So I think they're the big winner, and it'll show next year when they have those 2 first rounders sitting in there that they can use.
Yeah, we're definitely excited for this year now with all these rookies.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see who gets overdrafted in fantasy football.
I think the media is telling us it's time to hang it up for the day.
Yep. All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Not So Neutral Zone. Check us out at our Facebook page. For David, I'm Jacob. Hope you have a great